let's talk about how to teach kids to chew. So we have a lot of parents who join in on these Monday night with Coach Mel's. We have a lot of professionals, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, registered dietitians, the whole team approach with pediatricians, as a matter of fact, that help children who have difficulty with feeding development. And as I know many of you heard me say, I probably say it in every presentation, feeding is a developmental process. And what many parents don't realize is that children don't often just learn to chew. And there can be a variety of reasons for that. It can be a physiological issue. It can be a sensory issue. It can be, gosh, maybe that child had some medical challenges. I've got a little baby right now I'm working with who has just had a heart transplant. And you know, he was busy healing. That's a major, major surgery for that little pumpkin. He's doing really well. But we had to learn to chew at a much later age than we would expect. So when do babies typically start learning to chew? Well, from the moment you offer purees all the way up to safe start solids, which you'll find in my book, Baby Self-Feeding. Those babies are learning the process of chewing, but they don't really master it for safe foods, soft foods, until 12 to 14 months of age, to be honest with you. But they don't really master it for more advanced foods like bagels and steak and chewy foods, right? Until after the age of 3. That's because it's a motor pattern that relies not only on strength, but also on muscle stability. And over time, as kids get better trunk control and better facial muscle control, they gain that stability they need in order to create a nice rotary chew in order to really break through foods. But then you throw in the fact that they're teething, that really can throw a wrench in the works. And that little kids get sick a lot, they're being exposed to a lot of different germs and building up their immune system. And all of that will stall the process. Now, if they're an exceptionally picky eater and they're stuck on the typical kid foods of macaroni and cheese or McDonald's chicken nuggets, things that you frankly don't really need teeth to chew, that will further delay their ability to chew more challenging foods in an age-appropriate manner. So I want to give you some strategies around that. So let's just back up for a minute and talk about babies for a second. Babies learn to chew because of purees and safe start solids. And the more that they learn to keep that food over on the molar area, on the lateral margins of their mouth, the better. So with the therapist I was talking to today, I was recommending that when she presents the spoon of puree, that she not only present straight into the mouth, but also consider a lateral placement. So that looks like this. And you can either place it and dump it, or what I find to be easiest is just to have the spoon come in, go to the side, and that baby will almost always bite down on it unless they have some severe motor challenges. When they bite down on their spoon, then you're going to pull it back straight out. Remember to always come straight out, parallel to the floor. And now they have puree on their teeth, and they're going to take one little chew. Not only that, but their tongue is going to go move toward the stimulation. It's going to move toward the puree, and that's the beginning of eventually getting a rotary chew, because it all is dependent on jaw and tongue movement. And wherever your jaw goes, your tongue goes, and often vice versa when you're first learning to eat. So we want to use that to our advantage. Okay, so let's say little baby's progressing, but they end up on a professional's caseload, I don't know, let's say like 16 months. They're stuck on purees and they're mouthing a few things like macaroni and cheese, but they're really not chewing. In other words, they're not pushing their teeth together and starting that beautiful rotary chew that grinds up food. What do? Well, what we're going to do, sorry guys, bear with me, I'm a little hoarse today. Take a little drink here. What we're going to do is we're going to always present safe solids, meaning like pieces of avocado, pieces of squash, Pieces of dark meat chicken would be okay because dark meat chicken has all the extra oil in it, much better than white meat right now for this purpose. But whatever we present, we're going to present the size of a pea, and it's always going to be in a cube. Why a cube? Because when you put a little pea-sized cube of food in a child's mouth, they can feel the edges. So think about if you had some cheddar cheese and you just, sliced off a piece off the block of cheddar and you just broke off a random piece. Every time you put a random piece, even if it's the size of a pea, in that child's mouth, it's a little different every time. But if it has an edge or a cube shape, they're going to be able to feel it. Here's the first step. They've got to either A, be okay with you putting the food in their mouth, or B, know how to place it themselves. So when they put that little pea-sized cube in, if you're doing it, you want to go with your gloved hand, go right into their mouth and just put it right over on their molar. And if it's something like cheese, what I usually do is I kind of press it a little bit on the molar, not to squish it, just to get it to stick. And they will almost every time chew one time. That's your first step. So the moment that they chew one time, they bite down, that's when you give some social praise or you reward with a toy or whatever you want to do. But you let that little pumpkin know, that's it. That's what we're trying to do. Now, if they spit it out, just ignore it. Just ignore it because this is the first step. We're not working on chewing and swallowing yet, but let me show you how to get there. Then what you do is once they're chewing, ideally on both sides, but occasionally if I have a child who's very weak on one side but is ready to learn to chew on the stronger side, I will focus on the stronger side for a while and then meanwhile work on some oral motor strategies like chewy tubes to strengthen up the other side until I can eventually go a little bit here, a little bit there, and start to even out that musculature. So just use your best judgment on that one. So once they can chew one time, now you're going to work on chewing 2 times. And if you have a little kiddo who can't quite count to 2 yet, consider a really fun song, maybe just one line like Wheels on the Bus, and every time you put it in their mouth, you sing Wheels on the Bus as you chew, and they'll start to get the idea that they're going to do Wheels on the Bus as well. I have a little kiddo right now. I adore him. He has Down syndrome and he's a little over 3, and we're learning more about chewing too. And of course, what song do all the kids love right now? Baby Shark, right? So we're doing a lot of baby shark songs. A lot of, oh my goodness, every member of the shark family, we are biting down a couple times and singing a chorus. But you know what? It keeps them happy. It keeps them remembering about a repetitive chew. Just find what works for that pumpkin. For our older kids, let's say 2.5, 3.5 and older, those kids would benefit from just taking maybe a cute card game that would have, say, 2s, 3s, and 4s in the cards, and just mess those up on the table, let them pick a card, and if they pick 2, then we're going to chew 2 times. And I don't even say anything about what we're going to do with the food after that, because frankly, if you chew anything the size of a pea 2 times, you can probably swallow it. But if it falls out of their mouth or they reach in and grab it, I don't care because that's not the target goal. Okay, let's go to the next step. Let's say that we're working on that pea-sized cube. We've got the kid chewing about 3 times, and now it's time to teach him to chew 3 times and swallow. That's where you're going to provide a little bit of water if they're safe to do so. Every child in feeding therapy is different, but if they can manage a little bit of water, then you want a super thin straw. This one right here is really too wide, but you want a fairly thin straw for the little pumpkin and make sure it's nice and short. So now what he learns to do is chew, 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 take a sip. And then lots of praise for swallowing. Talk about that food going down to their tummy. And don't forget that when I post this on YouTube later tonight, I'm going to put a video right here, and it's all about how to teach an 18-month-old and up how to swallow. Okay, so watch for that one. Now you've got a kiddo who's learning to chew 3 or 4 times. take a sip of water to help wash it down. That's totally fine if he needs that right now. Now you're ready to start working on both sides if you haven't already started already. And then don't make it a bigger piece. Now start working on variety. But all of the foods that you're going to offer are really safe solids, as I keep saying. So avocados, squash, little pieces of macaroni, cheddar cheese, etc., soft cheese, dark meat chicken breast. You can get a lot of variety still building up on pea-sized bites. What's interesting about this technique is that the more you work on variety, you'll start to notice that the kids manage more foods easier. It becomes easier and easier for them. And that's when you know you can start to move from a pea-sized cube to more of a, like a garbanzo bean, kidney bean size. And then I eventually work my way up to what I call a nickel size. So about the size of a nickel. But it does take time. One thing you can do, if you haven't ever tuned in here before, I want to let you know that on my free toolbox tab, and I'll put it in the comments for you, you can have a free download of my 3 E's chart. It's one of the charts that I use to help a child expand their variety. But you can also note on there whether they're using pea-sized, bean-sized, or nickel-sized cubes. And those are the terms that I use in my chart notes as well. All right, my friends, those are the basic steps on how to get a child to chew.